My hands were shaking on the control panel when the alarm started, and I still remember the exact second everything changed. I am Daniel Voss, third officer aboard the warship Vengeance, and I was standing on the bridge when our fleet closed the blockade around Earth. 900 ships had formed a perfect wall in space, locking every possible escape route around that small blue planet. My captain, a tall and proud commander named Orlin Vask, had called it a simple task, a show of strength against a young species that had barely left its own solar system. I believed him, until the floor moved beneath my feet. It was not an earthquake because we were in space, but it felt the same. A tiny shift, a strange pull, as if gravity itself had forgotten its own rules for one heartbeat. Then every alarm across the ship began screaming at once. I turned toward the rear corridor, expecting a system failure, expecting anything except what I actually saw. A woman stood there. She was calm, almost bored, checking something on a device wrapped around her wrist. She had short brown hair and wore a thin gray suit, nothing like the heavy armor our soldiers used. She looked up at me the way someone looks up when they are waiting for a friend to arrive at a coffee shop, not like someone who had somehow appeared inside a heavily guarded warship without triggering a single sensor. I grabbed my weapon and pointed it at her, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my own ears. "How did you get on the ship?" I asked, my voice cracking. She smiled slightly, not with fear but with a strange kind of patience. "Same way as everyone else," she said. "We just walked around to the back." Before I could ask what that meant, Captain Vask's voice thundered through the comm system, calling every officer to report. His voice was calm at first, but I could hear the edge underneath it, the same fear that was rising in my own chest. "Report your status," he ordered. "What is happening on every deck?" The answers came flooding in from across the fleet, and each one repeated the same impossible detail. A human, standing calmly behind every single ship in our blockade. Not one ship spared. Not one exception. 900 ships and 900 humans, each one appearing at the exact same moment, without warning, without any sign on our instruments. I looked at the woman standing in front of me, and asked the question every officer across the fleet must have been asking their own uninvited guest. "Why are you here?" She lowered her wrist device and looked directly into my eyes. "To have a conversation," she said. "The kind that happens before things get worse instead of after." I did not lower my weapon. My training told me to hold my position, to treat her as a threat until proven otherwise. But something about her tone made me hesitate. She was not afraid. She was not even nervous. She spoke like someone who already knew how this moment would end. "You blocked our planet with 900 ships," she continued. "We wanted you to understand something before this goes any further. We are already standing behind every single one of them. That is not a threat. That is simply a fact you need to accept before we talk." My mind raced through every possible explanation. Hidden technology, advanced cloaking, a trick of some kind. None of it made sense. Our sensors could detect a fragment of rock the size of a coin from millions of miles away, yet somehow this woman had crossed our entire formation without triggering a single warning. Captain Vask's voice returned, quieter this time, addressing the entire fleet rather than a single officer. "All units, hold your position. Do not act until we understand what we are facing." His order came just in time, because on another ship somewhere in our formation, a young soldier's nerves broke, and I heard the commotion through the fleet channel. A weapon was raised toward the human standing in his corridor, but when I checked the report afterward, nothing had actually happened. The weapon simply failed to function, as if some invisible force had gently stepped in to stop it before it could cause any harm. The human on that ship never moved. He stood there, hands calmly at his sides, as if he had expected exactly that outcome. I turned back to the woman standing in front of me. "What do you want from us?" I asked. "Not war," she said simply. "We want you to leave. quietly, calmly, without anyone getting hurt. "We are not interested in destroying your fleet. We are interested in making sure you understand that destroying ours would not be as easy as your commanders believe." I studied her face, searching for any hint of deception, but found none. She spoke the way someone speaks when they already know the outcome of a conversation before it begins. "You could have attacked us the moment you arrived," I said. "Why show mercy instead?" She tilted her head slightly, as if considering how to explain something simple to someone who had never needed to think about it before. "Because we do not want enemies," she said. "We want peace, but peace only works when both sides understand the truth of the situation. Right now, your entire fleet believes it holds all the power here. We needed you to understand that this is not true before that belief led to a mistake neither of us could undo." Her calmness unsettled me more than any threat could have. I had trained for years to face enemies who screamed, who charged, who fought with desperate anger. I had never trained to face someone who spoke softly while standing inside the most heavily guarded section of my own ship, completely unafraid. Captain Vask requested a full report from every vessel, and the pattern became impossible to deny. Every single ship in our blockade had one human standing somewhere near its most protected systems, not attacking, not sabotaging, simply standing there, waiting patiently, as if giving us every opportunity to make the right decision on our own. Word spread quickly across the fleet that no weapon fired against these visitors had worked as expected. Reports described malfunctions, sudden power failures, or simple refusals to respond exactly at the moment they were needed. It was not chaos. It was control, precise and absolute, exercised with a kind of quiet confidence that frightened me more than any show of aggression ever could. "You could have simply told us this," I said, trying to understand her patience. "Why show us instead of explaining first?" She almost smiled. "Because explanations are easy to dismiss," she said. "Demonstrations are not." I lowered my weapon slowly, feeling foolish for having raised it at all against someone who had clearly never needed to fear it in the first place. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now," she said, "your captain gives the order to stand down, and we begin an actual conversation. One where your side listens as carefully as ours has been listening to you." 12 long minutes passed before Captain Vask's voice returned across the fleet channel, and this time his tone had changed completely. Gone was the confidence of a commander expecting an easy victory. In its place was the careful tone of someone who finally understood the size of the mistake he had almost made. "All ships," he said, "stand down. Open a communication channel with Earth immediately." I felt the tension in my chest ease slightly, though my hands were still trembling from everything I had witnessed. The woman in front of me finally lowered her wrist device completely and gave me a small, genuine smile. "You made the right decision," she said, "both of you." "Will you tell me your name?" I asked, surprised by my own curiosity after everything that had happened. "Claire," she said, "Claire Whitfield." "Daniel Voss," I replied, offering my name in return, feeling strangely calmer than I had any right to feel. She nodded once, almost respectfully, then turned and walked back down the corridor toward the section of the ship where she had first appeared. I watched her go, still unable to explain how she had entered undetected, still unable to explain how 900 identical events had occurred across an entire fleet in the exact same second. Later, our engineers spent weeks studying every recorded second of that encounter, searching for some trace of the technology used to bypass our defenses. They found nothing. No unusual energy signatures, no gaps in our scanning systems, nothing to explain how an entire species we had underestimated so completely had somehow mastered movement and control on a level none of us had ever encountered before. We had arrived at Earth expecting to find a young, defenseless world ready to accept whatever terms we offered. Instead, we left having learned an important truth in the span of a single tense afternoon. The blockade we had been so proud of had never actually been ours to enforce. It had only ever existed because Earth allowed it to, long enough to teach us exactly why threatening them had never been a wise decision in the first place.